And as I asked earlier, I know we have special presenters today. So if when you answer the roll call, we could just give your affiliation, that might be useful. So Rhonda, if you would call the roll, please.
Okay. Miss Bailey.
Here, Barry Bailey from the Louisiana Department of Education.
Dr. Cable. Miss Coleman.
Here and representing the Louisiana Association of Independent Colleges and Universities.
Dr. Davis. Dr. Henderson. Miss Lawson.
Here, Christy Lawson, representing the Louisiana School Counselor Association's public and charter school counselors.
Miss Talbert. Miss Merricks.
Here, representing the LSU system.
Mr. Powell. And Mr. Taylor Jarrell.
Here, Kevin Taylor Jarrell, second, representing Sun University and student member.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
You have 5 members present, which does not represent a quorum, but you have enough to go into an executive meeting per the agenda.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I will move us into an executive meeting. And thank you all for being here. And first, we need to recognize the certification of the virtual meeting. You can see that on your screens. And next, if this is not the proper place, I need to get a motion to add an agenda item. This would be under new business, item 2. And the motion is that the advisory board approve rulemaking to amend scholarship and grants program rules to add dual enrollment African American history as a course that may be graded on a 5-0 scale if the Board of Regents approves this action at its meeting with a majority vote of the members present. Oh, thank you. There it is. So we need a motion to amend the agenda to add this item, please. May I have a motion?
I motion it.
Thank you. A second?
I second Barry Bailey.
Thank you. All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're off to a great start. Okay, then we go back to introductions and announcements. I don't know. We'll just move through your screen. What I'm reading is from the white copy here. So
okay, before we get to that, this is Sue One. I would like to acknowledge our special guest. Thank you for attending Kate Hoffman from Earn to Learn, Philip Qualls from the Treasurer's Office, Lupe Lamadrid from the Board of Regents, Bradley Myers from the LSU system, as well as the State Association of Financial Aid Directors, and LaCharlotte Garrett. Regent Temple will be joining us later as a special guest today, and Sean Bergman and perhaps Jennifer Wilson-Curse from Vela Institute. So welcome to each of you and to LOSFA team members that are able to join in as well this morning.
all right, thank you. And now we get to welcome Brian. Is that next on the screen?
That's right. Good morning, everyone. And I'm the director over the Public Information and Communications Division. And I'm excited to welcome 2 new hires. We have Brian Cook, our Public Relations Specialist. Brian previously worked at Georgia Southwestern State University as the Assistant Director of Athletic Communications, but now he's joined our PIC family as our Junior Advocate for the My LOSFA College Advocate Initiative and our Public Relations Specialist. So super excited about Brian. He has incredible writing skills, and we look forward to having him write more feature articles about our students so that we can showcase it in our Student Voice Index on our website. So welcome, Brian.
Welcome.
And then we have Kalonda Dixon. Kalonda has joined us from AIM Print and Ship. She's one of our graphic designers now. So super excited to have her join us as well to assist with our design projects. And yeah, we're ready to just rock it out. So welcome, Kalonda.
Welcome. Okay,
Good morning. I'm Terry Underwood, and I am the Director of START Programs. We welcome Ms. Portia Harris to our team this morning. Portia joins us from Our Lady of the Lake Hospital, and she also is a graduate of Southern University with a bachelor's in accounting. So welcome, Portia. We're glad to have you on our team.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bret Hutt, Director of Finance for LOSFA. Will Brooks joined LOSFA's fiscal team a couple of weeks ago and has hit the ground running. He has an MBA from LSU Shreveport and just has a super diverse background in state government experience. It's a tough job market right now, and we consider ourselves fortunate to have found someone of Will's caliber to join our team. So we welcome Will.
Welcome. Thank you all. Someday, perhaps we'll all see each other in person. All right, next I need approval of the minutes from October 14th. You had those in, board members, you had those in your packet, and hope you've had a chance to peruse them. If so, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Amy Marix, I motion to approve.
Thank you, Amy.
Trustee
A
Lawson, I'll
second.
second.
Barry Bailey.
All right.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, moving right along. And I
Aye.
think next is public comment.
We haven't received anything.
It would be, all right, thank you. And, oh, we're going to do program updates next. Okay. So I'll turn this over to Dr. Butte for the presentations and or introductions.
Yes, thank you. We are very, very fortunate this morning to be able to bring to the advisory board and to our LOSFA team members joining in and division directors, two new initiatives that LOSFA will be embarking upon. We have with us Philip Qualls from the Treasurer's Office, Kate Hoffman from Earn to Learn, and soon to join Sean Bergman from Vela Institute. So Philip, would you like to say a few words first about, because we credit you with actually bringing and the Treasurer's Office with bringing the Earn to Learn opportunity to LOSFA's attention.
Sure. I'll say a few introductory words. First of all, thank you for inviting me to attend today's meeting, and a special hi to Kate, Suwan, and Terry. I just want to say that I'll let Kate explain the Earn to Learn platform, but I just wanted to say that the treasurer is very on board with this initiative. It kind of hits, a handful of his objectives of improving financial literacy in the state, as well as increased savings for college education. So he's absolutely willing to go out and support and promote the initiative by, adding it to his main talking points when he travels around the state and push it out on all his social media avenues. So if there aren't any other questions, I'll just turn it over to Kate.
Good morning, everyone.
Good
Thank you
morning.
so much for having me here today to share with you about the Earn to Learn program. And I think a great place to start might be to provide a little bit of the history of Earn to Learn and how it came about, and just our overwhelming excitement to have the opportunity to replicate the model in the state of Louisiana. And I did put together a couple of PowerPoint slides, and I think Rhonda, if you're okay with it, I'll cue you right to move the slides forward as we go. So just to share with you all, my background is actually from the financial services sector. And I'm one of those individuals who was struck by a lightning bolt and shifted from the financial services sector into nonprofit, really kind of with the idea of understanding what was working, what wasn't working, where were there gaps in service. And very early on, I came across this matched savings concept. And it definitely resonated with me because of my background. I also really like the fact that financial capability training was such a core component of the matched savings model. And just to give you guys an idea of like the timeline, this was around 2009, 2010 timeframe. And at that same time, I also learned about a very small program that existed in the Department of Health and Human Services that supported matched savings programs around the country. And the way that that program worked is you had to have a local commitment, a local match, and then you would apply to that federal program and it would literally match it dollar for dollar. So I bought a plane ticket with my own money and I flew to DC and I attended their conference trying to understand how it all worked. I was the only non-grantee that attended, so you can imagine they were scratching their heads as to what I was doing there, but I was really trying to understand how it all worked and what were some of the best practices within the match savings space. So ultimately, fast forward, I had the opportunity to take this concept to the 3 state universities in Arizona, and they were not familiar with that program out of HHS. And I was working predominantly with the financial aid offices. And this whole concept of match savings as it related to financial aid was relatively new. But ultimately, all 3 universities in the state of Arizona agreed to apply in partnership with me and my dining room table to that federal program. Which, if you all know, when I say that they agreed to apply in partnership with me and my dining room table, it was pretty miraculous indeed. But at the end of the day, what was unique about the universities moving forward here in Arizona is that they put up institutional aid, which was money that was already earmarked to support the Pell eligible target population in Arizona. And that federal program matched it dollar for dollar. So we ultimately ended up with 21 million in seed funding to get this thing up and off the ground. And it formally launched in January of 2013. And again, initially we were in partnership with the 3 state universities, but I'm excited to share with you all that since then we've also expanded to Pima Community College and Maricopa Community College District. And the reason I wanted to share that right out of the gate is it sets the stage for us to be supporting students, whether they're on the 4-year pathway, the 2-year pathway, or possibly even pursuing vocational training or CTE. So if you could go to the next slide, please, Rhonda. One of the sort of eye-opening aspects of all of this for me is I didn't have a background in nonprofit, and I didn't have a background in higher ed, but really early on recognized that, you know, the situation as it related to student loan debt was even very problematic, challenging back in 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013 timeframe. And of course, I'm sharing with you all that in my mind, it's only grown significantly since then. And I also want to share with you really early on in this presentation, Earn to Learn isn't just about supporting student access and recruitment. It's also about supporting those students through their post-secondary journey all the way to the point where they receive the credential. And then I would add another piece to it. It's also about trying to prevent student loan debt in the first place. We're really trying to minimize, if not eliminate, the need for students to have to take on student loan debt. And I'm really excited, and Suwan touched on this, Philip touched on this, the success of this project in Arizona has really just been pretty remarkable in terms of the student success we've witnessed so far. And it's really inspired a national dialogue around the potential for this to be a new model of financing higher ed. And so if you would go to the next slide, please. The way that the model works is students have to qualify for at least $1 of Pell Grant aid, and they have to be eligible for in-state tuition in order to participate. Personal finance training is a prerequisite to even apply. So think of that as the student's initial investment in themselves. At the point when they complete that step, that's when they meet with the success coaching team to make sure that they are indeed income eligible. And that's when they establish that savings account to start to systematically save towards a savings goal of $500 per academic year. And I'm stressing that because, again, this is renewable. They can do this their first year, their second year, their third year. predicated on which post-secondary pathway they're on would dictate the number of times they're able to renew. And the success coaching model, which I want to speak to in just a second, but as long as they're successfully participating in the program, they're attending one of our partner institutions of higher ed, students in this program receive $8 for every dollar they save in that account. It's an 800% return on that college savings account. And the combination of the 500 plus the 4,000 goes towards addressing unmet need. And I'm stressing that because there's a lot of discussion and dialogue around tuition. But certainly the overall cost of attendance isn't simply tuition. It's also books, fees, housing, meal plans, parking, transportation, and just all of the costs that make up the overall cost of attendance. So think of this as a supplement or a complement to Pell Grant aid that really helps to address some of those other costs. It certainly can go towards tuition, but it can also go to those other costs. And really at the end of the day, I think that's been a key driver in the ability for this program to help impact the overall student loan debt of the target population that we're serving. So the success coaching model is a really critical piece that I would like to highlight with you all. It not only includes a college readiness and retention training component, it also includes an ongoing financial capability training component, and it also includes a workforce readiness training component. And all of these elements of the success coaching model are meant to be complementary or supplemental to the existing student support services that are on the ground on the campuses that we're working with. And I say that because, you know, I've often said, like, just because you attend a budgeting workshop doesn't mean that you all of a sudden are managing your budget, right, in an effective manner. It's really that idea of repeated exposure to core concepts over time that ultimately leads to behavioral change. And so to that end, it's reinforcing. And that's really the intent of the success coaching model. And again, I know we're going to have Q&A as well, but just to let you guys know, we're really excited about the impact of the success coaching model. So it's really, in my mind, the secret sauce is the combination of the students investing in themselves and saving those critical dollars that are matched 8-to-1, coupled with the success coaching model that has led to the success of the program. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So our first year retention rate is hovering around 90%. And we are on track to have completion rates approaching 80% for the traditional students that we're serving in the program. So think of students coming up out of the K-12 pipeline, seniors graduating and going straight into post-secondary. Our 6-year completion rate is hovering around 80%. And for the non-traditional student population that we're serving, think adult learner who might be looking to reskill or upskill. We have students in the program in Arizona that are literally in their early 60s and every age in between. So that non-traditional student population, I'm also really proud of in terms of the ability of this program to support that population. Our completion rates are approaching 85% with that target population. And I share that with you all because one of the things that I learned coming quickly coming out of the gate was the fact that there seems to be a lot of scholarships and grant aid specifically directed at that traditional student population. But when it comes to non-traditional students, it seems like there's far less available. Yet the cost of attendance is exactly the same. So for that non-traditional student population, this can be a really important tool in their tool chest. So all of that to say, when it comes to student loan debt, the average student loan debt coming out of our university system in Arizona is around $24,000-25,000, which is certainly less than the national average. The absolute lion's share of our students, are graduating with less than $10,000 in student loan debt, but the absolute majority have $5,000 or less. And as you guys can imagine, that's an absolute game changer when you're getting ready to embark on that career coming out of school. So could you go to the next slide, please?
That's all I have for you. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
that's fine. We can stay on the last slide. All of that to say, you guys, this is also inspired legislation at the federal level. We drafted the Earn to Learn Act, working with Legislative Counsel in the US Senate. It has been introduced in the Senate as of April. A companion bill moved forward in the House in June. It is effectively $1 billion expansion of this concept that would be housed out of the Department of Education to really support post-secondary success. And as I met Philip and I met Suwan and I met so many other amazing people in Louisiana who really want to support post-secondary success, this concept of match savings definitely resonated, and the opportunity to pilot this in Louisiana and ultimately get a program stood up in the state of Louisiana with the intention that with the success of the Earn to Learn Act, Louisiana would be really well positioned to take advantage of it, much like Arizona is really well positioned to take advantage of it. And it could translate into tens of millions of dollars coming into the state to really support post-secondary success and introduce a new tool in the tool chest. And again, this is a tool in a tool chest that requires many tools, as you all know. This isn't meant to be the only tool or a tool in lieu of other tools. It's really intended to be a complement, supplement to a lot of the amazing programs you all already have to support students and families in the state. So Suwan, I'm sure I might have left something out. Philip, I might have left something out. If you would like me to touch on anything that I left out, but I just cannot express my enormous gratitude to have this opportunity to work with you all and replicate this model in Louisiana.
Kate, thank you so much. And we are grateful to you because, you know, the questions that we had, the clarification, you were always at the ready. Philip, always at the ready to be able to facilitate getting more information. Could you touch briefly, Kate, on the workforce component that you all have in partnership with business? Because that is something that I feel like is key.
Yes. So, and again, this is not intended to be in lieu of career services. This is meant to be a complement, supplement to the opportunities for students to work with career services on the campuses. So we are providing elements of hard skills training and soft skills training to the students that are in the program. In addition to partnering with several of the employers in the state of Arizona and working with the chambers of commerce to create business mentoring opportunities, job shadowing opportunities, informational sessions with various employers across the state. Just to give you guys some examples of some of the employers that we're working with Raytheon, we're working with Texas Instruments. Sorry, that's my dog trying to come in. It's banging at the door, so I apologize for that noise in the background. But what we have found with the employers is we're working with a target population that they would really like to reach. And as employers look to a large percentage of potentially their employee base retiring because they're baby boomers, or they're looking to diversify their workforce, or they're really looking to hire employees that aren't buried alive in student loan debt. And forgive me for saying that, but it's definitely become a major concern for employers, this issue of student loan debt, in that students are not graduates who are future employees are potentially not opting to participate in their 401k or buy a house or get married and settle down because they're so overwhelmed by the student loan debt. So the reception from the chambers and employers has been incredible. And the business mentoring model itself has been just transformational to the point where we have students who have gone on, who have been mentored, who have gone on to become permanently placed at these employers and become mentors themselves to mentor future students coming into the program, because it's been such an incredibly positive experience. So all of that to say, we're really, really proud of that. And Suwan, is there something else you wanted me to touch on with the workforce readiness training component?
Kate, that is fantastic. For those that know me well, they know that that is a passion of mine, and that we are really serving the entire student and integrating and moving students from the education they receive into the job or the career that it relates to. Because to me personally, that is the only way you validate, match, and fit and set students up for success. So we're very excited. And Chair Coleman, it appears we have, per Andrew, a public comment, which could be a question for Kate. Andrew, I'll let you take it away with that.
Hi, Miss Ann Zanders, I believe, says, so individual colleges have to join as an institution. So I believe that's for Miss Kate.
Okay, so I will share this. In Arizona, we have a very different setup than you all do in Louisiana. So just to add an element of clarity, we do not have in Arizona state-funded needs-based aid. We're one of like 3 states in the whole country that doesn't have it. And so we don't have the same setup as you all do in Louisiana. So in this case, the Department of Education is spearheading the replication of Earn to Learn in Louisiana, which actually creates the opportunity for students to have choice, right, across the entire spectrum of institutions of higher ed as defined by the Department of Education that might be participating in the program. So I don't know if that helped or it caused more confusion, but you all just have a very different setup than we do in Arizona.
Yes, and that, just for clarification for Ms. Sanders and for our listeners, that would be Board of Regents. So our Board of Regents, the parent agency for LOSFA programs, is the administering agency. So yes, Ms. Sanders, that's a very good question, because it was one that we thought at first was going to be the case, that an institution has to say, I am committed to providing the support. I am committed, or we are committed to providing the financial literacy. But as Kate informed me on a great call one day, that Earn to Learn is going to be providing those things. And I said, hey, that's great, but can our LOSFA team members who work in our direct outreach shadow your team? Because the best practices that are producing numbers of this magnitude are things that we not only want to avail for Earn to Learn participants in the pilot, but certainly there's lessons learned that we can replicate at LOSFA for the students that we serve on a broader scale. So yes, thank you for asking that question, because it's one that we had as well.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
So what is the target population? Because I'm hearing that they need to be Pell eligible. The only way that I'm aware that they would be Pell eligible is once they complete the FAFSA as a senior. So are we looking at graduating seniors, or is it younger? I mean,
so in the event that they're a senior and they complete the FAFSA, certainly part of the income verification process is collecting that student aid report. If they happen to be younger or not at a point in their student journey where they're completing the FAFSA, we also use the FAFSA forecaster as a indicator of their eligibility to participate in the program, with the understanding that they still have to complete the FAFSA at the point when they're eligible to complete the FAFSA starting October 1 of that year prior to walking on campus. The other thing that I would say is in Arizona, we did determine that the target population could be students of any age, as long as they were eligible for at least $1 of Pell Grant aid and they were eligible for in-state tuition. And I think, predicated on Suwan and her team, working with us to figure out what makes the most sense for Louisiana, there's a very real possibility that you all may mirror that target population in Louisiana, I would imagine.
Yes, that's
and
correct.
then the only other thing I would say, oh, sorry, go ahead, Suwan.
Yeah, no, that's correct. Christy, to that question, they do have to be eligible for attending in-state, right? And this is designed for post-secondary students. In other words, somebody embarking on their post-secondary career, whether they are a traditional student, returning adult, we have not designated an age. So in our letter of commitment, that is where Louisiana currently would stand on the concept.
And then I think just for the benefit of the group, and again, you all may be very aware of this already, so I apologize if this is a repeat, but when I embarked on this journey, eligibility for Pell my understanding was that it capped out at 150% of the federal poverty level to qualify for Pell Grant aid. But just to share with the group, legislation was passed right before Senator Lamar Alexander retired from the US Senate that actually is increasing the overall income threshold for Pell Grant aid to the point that now families up to 400% of the federal poverty level will be qualifying for at least $1 of Pell Grant aid. And to me, that's just incredibly important because I think, you know, when it comes to addressing the overall cost of attendance and the idea that a model like this could really help minimize, if not eliminate, the need to take on student loan debt, being able to provide this to even more potential families across not only the state of Arizona and the state of Louisiana, but across the country, could be really, really impactful. So that doesn't go into effect this next academic year. I think it's the academic year after that, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be mistaken on the timing of that.
Thank you so much, Kate, and Philip as well. We are super excited about this partnership and the potential that it brings for students. Are there any more questions before we move on to our next presenter for Kate?
I have a couple of questions or things for clarification. One is where is Louisiana in this process? What would be next steps? And the second one is, am I understanding correctly that you also that this would come under the the Board of Regents, but also institutions themselves would sign up to be partners, and that all institutions that in the state would be eligible to do that? Is that correct?
The institutions, the student has, as it currently stands, the student has the choice of which institution they attend because the student support coaching services and the financial literacy services are going to be provided by Earn to Learn. So that opens it up to the student's choices to the institution that they attend. So we've worked out a timeline, and Kate, we can go through it and we can certainly send it to you as advisory board members so that you will see it in writing. But you're going to basically have a ramp up process. This will ramp up at around the same time that MJ Foster is ramping up. So you have a recruitment process in that fall semester to be able to recruit students. Then the students have until that following spring semester, I think February, March, maybe, Kate, the deadline to open up the account. So that once the students open up the account, then that begins a process. And then I believe it was the following fall that 8-to-1 match is provided to them as that financial aid award to the institution they're choosing. The 4-to-1 match, part of the 8, right? Kate is seeking philanthropic funding for that. The other part of the 4-to-1 match, we have plans to use Go Grant for that. So those are the details that we'll be working through. Again, increases in Go Grant make that very realistic. So that is where we are right now. So Kate, please correct me if I erred on that.
No, that was great. I would just say while the goal is that while we're waiting for the Earn to Learn Act to move forward at the federal level, we want to stand up a project in Louisiana that's philanthropically funded, effectively mirroring the way that the bill was written, in that there's a local match that's going to be matched by philanthropy. When the Earn to Learn Act passes, it's going to require a local match that would be matched by that future federal program. So the intention is to get the infrastructure in place so that we can start recruiting students in Louisiana and serving students in Louisiana. And, you know, anytime you start something new, there may be some wrinkles and kinks, but we work our way through that. And then ultimately it sets the stage for Louisiana to be really well positioned to pursue far larger dollar amounts at the point when the program becomes available through the Department of Education. And this is getting broad bipartisan support, you all. We're meeting with senators and members of the House, Republican, Democrat, and the response has just been incredible in terms of overwhelming support for this future federal program.
Another question for Kate. Do you have any idea when this legislation will be moving again at the federal level?
So we are actively working on it now, and we were blessed to receive some funding through the Arizona Community Foundation here to engage a lobbyist to help support moving that forward at the federal level. There's discussions about the possibility of it potentially moving forward this calendar year, but that it would be at warp speed, as you can imagine. There's also discussions about it being attached to the reauthorization of the Higher Education Act at the point when that happens. But as you all know, they've been talking about that at the federal level since
long time.
the dawn of time.
Yeah.
But they're also talking about the possibility of attaching it to the reauthorization of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which I find very intriguing because it really is a workforce development strategy. We're not just supporting pipeline development into post-secondary, it's really supporting talent pipeline development into the workforce. And so all of that to say, there's a number of conversations happening around the path it will take moving forward at the federal level. But I have shared with both Philip and Suwan that, certainly having all of these states at the table expressing an interest in replicating the model and reaching out to their respective congressional delegations in support of it is very positive. So, I mean, we're talking to states such as you all, right, Louisiana, but we're also talking to Texas, Mississippi, Florida, Kansas, Virginia, Ohio, Indiana. And I use those as some of the examples. We're also talking to Utah, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, California, and Hawaii. So it is a broad spectrum of states that are expressing a high level of interest in replicating the model and doing so with a philanthropically funded pilot to help get the project stood up so that those states will be well positioned to take advantage of the future federal program.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
That was helpful. Anybody else have other questions?
Ms. Coleman, I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to mention that Mr. Powell has joined, so a quorum has been established.
All right, thank you. So we're anything else on this? So excuse me, Suwan, what would be our next steps? Is there something this advisory board needs to do?
We want to just bring the concept to your attention. We will continue to keep our advisory board members updated on the progress. We know that institutions, guests that are listening may have additional questions. I'm going to get Brittany or Andrew to be able to post or give you the CustServe email so that if you have further questions on the concept, that can come into CustServe and then they can route it to us so that we can get responses. So just wanted you all to be aware of this exciting new venture that we're undertaking. And thank you, Kate. Thank you, Philip. Andrew or Brittany, can you give that email and then we can go into Vela next because Jennifer and Sean are both on board.
Sure thing. I put it in the chat and then Andrew will also put it on YouTube.
Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you.
one more for Miss Kate. Ann Zanders says, how do we refer to the initiative when we write to our legislators in DC? Is it Earn to Learn?
Yes, the Earn to Learn Act. But if thank you for that question. That's a fantastic question. I've talked to Philip and Suwan about the possibility of even providing like a suggested template letter along with like some key attachments to share with you all just as a suggestion if you're open to reaching out to your congressional delegation regarding the Earn to Learn Act. So Suwan and Philip, I'll definitely circle back with you all this week with that like potential suggested language, if that sounds
Great.
good.
That sounds fine. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
One
And
more.
do you want me to hang up?
No, this is Mary Ann again. Have you been also working with all of the national associations that those of us who are on the board may be involved with?
So we've been working with some. I don't know what that list of national associations are, but it would certainly be interesting to find out what that list is, Mary Ann, and then I can confirm who we've talked to and who we haven't talked to.
You know, like ACE and NICU, and then there's one for state institutions. and there's one for land grant institutions, and they all have, and then many institutions have their own lobbyists, but those groups that function at the national level, I'm sure that I'm leaving many out that I didn't work with, financial aid probably, they also have their own members who have long and deep-seated relationships with members of Congress.
Yep. Agreed. So, so to that end, we've predominantly been meeting with SHIO, but we've also gotten like a whole long list of all of these other entities that they've wanted us to connect to, that SHIO indicated they wanted us to connect to. And so we've met with some of them, but certainly not all of them. But I'm definitely open to any like suggestions, recommendations, introductions, predicated on your comfort level with doing those types of things. So again, that's something maybe I can circle back with Suwan and Philip to figure out like how that might best be facilitated with you all if you're open to that.
Okay, thank you. I didn't mean to keep you. Okay, Suwan, if we'll turn it back to you if there are no more questions for Ms. Hoffman.
Okay.
Ms. Hoffman,
Go ahead.
Ms. Hoffman, you're welcome to stay. If you have other business to take care of, you can silently exit out if you so choose, but you're more than welcome to stay.
Thank you so much, you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. So next up would be Sean Bergman with Vela. So we are extremely excited about this initiative. As you all know, there is a ton of great work that is done at LOSFA programs to reach students. But in these times of funding that is limited, we have to prioritize the great work that has the most impact on students. So this Vela Institute contract is a part of LOSFA, moving from, and you can advance the slide, Rhonda, from head count to outcomes, right? So we do a lot of work on how many students we serve, right? And those numbers sound great, but to be able to justify additional funding and the funding that we continue to have, and to be able to justify where we put the limited resources that we have to move towards, but which services are the most effective? What's the best case service mix that moves the needle for students? Here you can see an example of the report that is legislatively directed by Act 1202, right, and produced by the Board of Regents based upon data that's transferred to them from LOSFA that gives you outcomes for TOPS. So that's currently being done. Next slide, Rhonda. You also see that we can move from headcount data so far to outcome data within 150% time frame on when you're comparing students and the types of aid that they get. But we don't have as much data, right? We need to dig in more to what can we be doing with our outreach services across LOSFA programs, what works best, whether that's outreach, provision of financial aid, the combination of both. And we are very fortunate to get a nationally renowned team to be able to assist us with this project. And we wanted you all to hear all about it. So I will turn it over to you, Sean and Jennifer next.
Fantastic. Thank you, Suhan, so much for that warm introduction. I'm not going to spend I was told I got about 10 minutes, so I want to stay within about that 10-minute time frame. I have the 4 points that I want to make in my time with you here is do a quick introduction of who Vela is and what we're all about and why we're involved in this conversation, involved in this meeting. The second part is to tell you a little bit about why we're different and how the skills and the expertise we can bring to this particular conversation. And then the thing that you'll probably be the most interested in is a little bit about what we're doing and why we're doing it, and talk a little bit about our approach. And so you all, I know, got an email that gave a really quick introduction of who Vela is and who we are. We're a team of evaluation, data analytics, decision-making, and technology and platform experts. We are doing this kind of evaluation work all over the country. The really nice thing about our team is that we've got folks that have, quote unquote, walked in your shoes. We have folks that have run these programs, have worked kind of boots on the ground and done this kind of work. And then we marry that with some of the other technical expertise that comes into that. And so for my example, I am a professor here at Appalachian State University in Boone, North Carolina. I'm also the director of research here at Vela. And so I bring an IO psychology data analytics bend to a lot of this work that's been done. And so that's really kind of the nice blending of what we do and our approach. And I'll talk a little bit more about the two frameworks that we use to kind of anchor our approach here in just a second. So Rhonda, if you wouldn't mind moving to the next slide. So thank you. So here's our team that will be working with you all, that has already begun working with you all. Myself, I am Sean Bergman, professor of psychology here at Appalachian State University. I'm also, like I said, the director of research here at Vela. We've got Jennifer Wilson-Kearse, who is our executive director, who is on the call as well. Jennifer has run a number of those large-scale programs and those large-scale outreach efforts. And then Todd and Matthew have also worked with her in various capacities. Todd has actually done a lot of different work within the school, both being as a teacher, to a bus driver, to a counselor. And so he's got a lot of those kind of, real world experience kinds of things. And so this is the team. This is who we are and what we're bringing to the table. I'm going to pause there really quick. I have been told by my students on more than one occasion that I can talk really fast. And so those of you who are familiar with debate in high school, there is a tactic called speed and spread debate. That is, you throw as much information at the team as humanly possible. And if they cannot refute all of the information that you throw in your 2 to 3 minute window, they cede the match, you win. Not surprisingly, undefeated when I took on that tactic. So I can throw a ton of information at a very, very short amount of time. So before I move into what we're doing and why we're doing, are there any questions about who we are and why we're here a part of this conversation? I'm hearing none. So let's move on to the part that you really will probably care the most about. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jennifer.
I just wanted to add that the only person you didn't mention was Matthew, and I like to share that Matthew is was a Gear Up student and received Gear Up services and is now working with our team, and he now has his master's in analytics. And so we just really like to kind of share with everyone that, as Sean said, we have walked in your shoes. And whether it's from implementing and managing college access programs to students who have received those services and who are now working with us. So go ahead, Sean.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, down in the bottom right-hand corner. So I will make sure I apologize to Matthew on our next meeting. And so, Rana, if you wouldn't mind, there you go. Thank you very much. So what are we doing and why? So one of the things that I really like is that I'm a psychologist. I'm an industrial organizational psychologist by trade, and then have really been always interested in quantitative methods and statistics. And so I like being a psychologist in this particular space simply because I get to bring a lot of the human decision-making elements to how folks think, how programs work, how a group of people works together, and blend that evidence-based practices with the analytics kinds of piece. So as you kind of already told, we're going to start examining some of the outreach programs. So Todd, Matthew, and Jennifer have gotten a lot of, and Alex have gotten a lot of that data. We're starting to sort through some of that information that we have. And as you heard, what we're looking at is moving the needle, right? So which are the services that have the largest impact? And so we're trying to go from those beautiful dashboards that you just saw that give you the descriptive statistics to the ones that say, okay, which are the ones that are the most impactful for these particular type of outcomes? And part of the reason why we need analytics is this particular model. So this is our Vela evidence-based practices approach. This is also, it can also be framed as the science practitioner approach. There's some other terms that go with it. And this is how I teach all of my classes, from my intro to HR class to my basic and my advanced quantitative methods and analytics courses. Then I just want to highlight a couple of the different pieces there. Through no fault of our own, human beings, we have we do a decent job, but not a great job of connecting our actions and behavior and things we do right now in the moment to actual impact down the road, especially when time occurs between the thing we do and the outcome that we're trying to impact. And so a lot of times you can imagine these programs are big, there's a lot of effort, there's a lot of fantastic work going on, but it's sometimes difficult when your outcome is 2 to 3 to 4 years later, even longer, to really be able to separate out that signal and the noise. And so why I like this evidence-based practices framework is that it says good decisions are components of 5 different pieces of information. First, we have the scientific literature. literature. So what has been done before? What is already been shown to be effective? Go do a lit review, figure out, okay, so what has been shown to help move the needle in previous situations? Then we have the data, and that's your organizational information on the right-hand side of the inside wheel there. And that is, okay, that's the part we have. That's the information that we're collecting that is unique to you all. And we're going to see how well that information from the results from the scientific literature generalizes to your specific organization. But why I really like this model is that's the very sterile data analytics driven type of research and science. I like this model because we have your professional expertise and the stakeholders' input. And so that's why we're here talking with you today. As I tell my students all the time, whether they're in the intro to HR class or the analytics courses, that yes, the data can tell you a lot, but you need to get the input of the individuals who are working at that ground level, get that story, get that expertise, and understand the larger system constraints and the larger system input that's going into making a good decision. And so that's kind of the human element that all needs to funnel and come together. And if you don't have a balance of all of those different pieces, then you're missing the whole picture. And if you're missing the whole picture, you can't make the best possible decision. And so we're going to use this framework and then use the technology, which is that last element, to pull it all together to help identify, okay, based on your expertise, based on your experiences, which through no fault of our own is incomplete, let's supplement that with the data. Let's understand what services are working to move the needle on which outcomes that are of interest, that are the most important, that are the ones that are most impactful. And let's make sure we understand the situations around those. And that's why I like the data analysis piece. Because as human beings, we have limitations to how much information we can process. We've got limitations to all the different connections we can make about something that's going on as massive as an entire statewide implementation or entire statewide effort. That's where that data piece can come in. And that's the part that we're working on and we're doing. So I could spend a lot of time. In fact, we're going to start going through some professional development with some of the data folks, the data personnel, starting on November 18th. And we're going to work through this framework and this process to kind of get a better sense of what are all the contextual things that are going on there? What are the kinds of questions that you have? And how can we use this data to answer the question that we've been charged with answering is, which services have the most impact on moving the needle for the families, the students, and the schools that you all serve? And so what we're going to be doing is moves perfectly into, Rana, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide there, is something that we call the analytics pyramid. Now, up here, I don't know how many of you know of Boone, North Carolina. Both Jennifer and I live here in Boone. And obviously, I'm a professor at Appalachian State University here in my office. And we are the Mountaineers. And so we do not have an analytics pyramid here in Boone, North Carolina. We have an analytics mountain. So Rhonda, if you wouldn't mind moving to the analytics mountain, and let's talk about how this framework and this analytics mountain is a perfect segue into what we are going to talk about, moving away from just a report that talks about outcomes or the provision of services to those connections between the two. And if you wouldn't mind the next graphic there, Rhonda. So first, we're going to start at the very base of it, and that is the mountain, and that's called Descriptive Analytics. That is exactly what you guys have been talking about and what you have produced, what we saw those great examples of those dashboards there. That is the absolute bedrock. If you do not have a good reporting system for how the services are being provisioned, how the outcomes are coming about, you can't move up the pyramid. You cannot move up the mountain. And so that is this first picture of, okay, what happened? How many services were given? How much money was spent? How many students ended up attending or going and getting served? What were their kinds of outcomes? And so you absolutely need that fundamental reporting piece. And if you don't have that, then we cannot move up the mountain. I've tried to push organizations forward before they have a good reporting structure. It kind of gets shaky and doesn't necessarily work, but you already have that layer built in. You have that that good reporting structure. So now we're going to move to the next level. So Rhonda, if you wouldn't mind, there you go. Thank you. And that is going to be diagnostic analytics. This is exactly what we're looking to do. We're going to connect the effort, the inputs with the outcome. And so this is where we're collecting all of that data. We're looking at your outreach programs, and we're going to connect the effort to those services and identify, okay, which information, which services, what funding sources, what was delivered into whom had the most impact on those particular outcomes. As we talked about before, this is a lot of information for a human mind to try to process. And this is the beauty of analytics to kind of help us separate out the signal and the noise. Now, the nice thing about diagnostic and descriptive analytics, Rhonda, if you wouldn't mind hitting the next one, is that they're all retrospective. So this is information that we've already collected and we've already used into the past. And so I just want to highlight the last two elements of this mountain and throw it as a possibility. And that's what everybody talks about, predictive analytics. And so predictive analytics is one of those great things that everybody just, oh yeah, you hear it, you hear it in the commercials, you know that we should be doing it, but most people don't know what it means. And so predictive analytics is just simply taking the lessons learned in the diagnostic phase and projecting it forward into the future. That is, you've collected your predictor information. What is likely the outcome that's going to happen? Think about this. You have been exposed to a predictive analytics model for pretty much your entire life. It's called a weather report and the weather forecast. And so when they say there's a 60% chance of rain, what they're saying is 60% of the time when all of these conditions have occurred, all of these inputs have happened, it rains 60% of the time. And that is what we're going to potentially, that is what a future could be, is once you build these diagnostic models, you can start doing some forecasting. And then at the very, very top of the pyramid, the mountain there is the prescriptive analytics. Very, very few companies get to this. But this is where you start to have a little bit of that AI machine learning kinds of things where you have done some experiments. And so you can put something into a system and it will start to suggest that, for example, a student comes in, a student being served by one of those services, you input all of the information that you have that we have described in the descriptive analytics, that we've looked at the relationships in the diagnostic analytics. We confirm that our predictions and forecasting is accurate. And then it starts to say, okay, based on this student's current situation and stuff that we are expecting is going to happen, here are some possible outcomes. And rather than having the human being do that, the computer does that through all of the different pieces of information. Now, I am not suggesting we're getting all the way to the top of this mountain. We are first charged with building the base up, but I'm just showing those, highlighting those last two pieces because so many people hear about predictive analytics. They want to move to predictive analytics. And if you do, that's great. We're not necessarily pushing to say that, but we're saying the first thing we need to do is the absolute necessity. Understand the descriptive, understand the diagnostic. And then from there are some other possibilities out there. Most companies most organizations don't even get to the diagnostic phase. So just getting further up that mountain, further up that pyramid can give you all that kind of information. And so that's what we are going to be working on, is looking at which services, which inputs are moving the needle for the students, the families, and the schools that you all serve. And what are those services? What are those impacts? What are those resources that have been most effective in hitting some of those benchmarks and those outcomes? And I just wanted to do an introduction of ourselves, talk a little bit about our approach, this evidence-based practices approach, blending the psychology, the human decision-making, your professional expertise, the stakeholders with the previous research and the data, and then talk a little bit about this analytics pyramid, this analytics mountain, to show you the framework that we're going to start working on and how we're going to start helping you all figure out the next evolution of where you want to go with your services. So that's all I had to present. I believe that was all I was asked to present. I'm sure Suhan will let me know if there's other things you'd like to talk about.
You did great. Yeah.
Please let me ask any questions.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Sean. This is just definitely being a process that we are excited to begin. And as you know, we are going to do our very best to get to the top of that mountain, because I think the lives of the families and students in Louisiana depend on our willingness and our ability to get as far as we can. So we definitely appreciate this and love the way that you were able to explain it. Are there any questions?
No, this has been great and very helpful, very useful. Thank you. I have just a really mundane question. Does Vela stand for something?
I think that's a fun story. When we were trying to decide our name years ago, we knew we were thinking about using analytics to illuminate education and educational decisions. And So one of our team members is from Mexico, and actually it was my husband that was listening to this whole conversation while he was on the couch or something, and he started Googling definitions or words that meant illuminate, and Vela is Spanish and it means candle or illuminate. So we really liked that Vela meant illuminate, and that the work that we do with analytics is hopefully illuminating decision making in education decisions. So that's where that came from.
That's great, and I really appreciate that, and probably someone with a broader background in languages, whatever, would have recognized that. But
yeah.
I was thinking more in terms of acronyms or people's first names, last names. But
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, we're back to our executive director, I think, or we're into program.
We're moving on. Yes, ma'am.
So that's what program updates, the ABLE reports, is that, there we are, thank you.
Hi, I'm Terry Underwood, and I'm the Director of START Programs. And Rhonda, if you can go to the next slide, thank you. The START Saving Program is designed to allow Louisiana citizens to save for their loved ones' higher education expenses. The START K-12 Savings Program allows Louisiana citizens to save for tuition expenses in Louisiana schools for their loved ones. And also the Louisiana ABLE program allows disabled citizens to save for disability expenses related to their particular disability. And you can see we have almost 75,000 combined accounts.
Wow.
With $1.3 billion in managed assets. Okay, Rhonda, you can go to the next slide. Ms. Coleman had asked a question in our last meeting concerning the rating, and I added that slide to our meeting today. Savingforcollege.com is an independent resource to provide information and tools to understand the benefits of 529s to meet the challenges of increasing college cost. START earns a 4.5 of 5 grad cap rating. We're graded on performance and our not charging administrative fees to our account owners. And you can see we have a 4.5 rating.
Wow.
And that's what I have today. Thank you.
Great, and thank you for that update on the ratings. And next we go to Public Information and Communications Update, Dr. Francis.
Good morning again, everyone. So as most of you may know, Lex, our chatbot that's located on our website, provides timely answers to questions related to TOPS and general financial aid information. So if a student has a complex question about their TOPS award, Lex will direct them to contact LOSFA or log into their Student Hub account for additional assistance. In the month of October, Lex answered 341 questions and 2,063 questions since the chatbot launched in August. So that's super exciting that the students are utilizing Lex, and even parents are utilizing Lex, and we're continuing to monitor those responses and update Lex's knowledge base as we go along. Over to the right are stats for our virtual assistants. Our Public Information and Communications team has conducted 1,823 virtual office hour sessions via Zoom since the office transitioned to working remotely in March of last year. In addition, through collaborative efforts with our Field Outreach Services Division, our outreach staff has conducted 650 virtual events. To continue with the virtual assistance that our Public Information and Communications team provide to students across the state, we hosted a webinar that focused on students registered with LDOE as home study or non-public, not seeking state approval. So TOPS requirements were shared with 35 attendees, along with specific information that is required to complete the FAFSA. And over to the right, our communication staff shared information about TOPS retention requirements to students at Nichols State University to help them maintain their TOPS award. In addition, our comm staff presented state financial aid program information at the 2021 Louisiana Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators, also known as LASFA, boot camp to new financial aid administrators. Last are our LOSFA mentions. So kudos to our Public Information and Communications team, Field Outreach Services team, and the team at the Louisiana Department of Education on their collaborative efforts to publish a blog about Louisiana's success with FAFSA completion. Thanks to the Education Commission of the States for asking LOSFA and LDOE to participate. The blog was shared by Education NC, which is an independent source of news about education in North Carolina. And then over to the right, kudos to Deborah Paul, our Scholarships and Grants Director, and Darius Spurlock, our Field Outreach Services Regional Coordinator, for interviewing with WAFB about FAFSA completion. They shared information that students and parents need to have to complete the form and why financial aid is important. So super excited to always be able to highlight the LOSFA mentions at our advisory board meetings. And that's all I have for today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Comments? Okay, next, student engagement. Ms. Malveaux.
Good morning, Ms. Coleman, and good morning, everyone, and to our guests. My name is Lavonia Malveaux. I am the Director of Student Engagement Division, which happens to be LOSFA's newest division, only operational since May of this year, 2021. So we're in our 6th month. Next slide, please, Rhonda. And so even as you have heard all things discussed about FAFSA, October was the month of FAFSA kickoff. And so as we were partnering with our fellow division directors and teams, our focus in our network groups, which again are targeting engineering, accounting, and finance majors and nursing students, with connecting each other to one another with their peers and connecting them to resources and supports, and then connecting them to professionals that could possibly mentor them within their respective fields of studies. Primarily, that's our role of student engagement. But in our month, in the month of October, for our meetings, we shared this FAFSA kickoff, partnering with LFOS Financial Aid and Career Development Specialist Bret Kelly, just reminding our students the importance of submitting their FAFSA timely and the necessary of doing so, even if they are seniors, not knowing what may come in that last semester. So as you can see on this particular slide, we saw the impact of those 3 groups. And as we are excited to know that our groups, even though focusing on post-secondary, we do avail opportunity for those secondary juniors and seniors who have identified their career path and choosing to early on board, and we avail them in. What we were most excited about, that even in our expansion of our groups, we continue to attract students at all ends of the spectrum, whether they're freshmen, are coming through about to graduate. And as you can see, we had a couple of adult learners that are seeking the benefits of this group. Next slide, Rhonda. In addition to our network groups, we convened orientations, still trying to build awareness throughout the state of Louisiana so that as many students as possible can make use of this initiative. So we were privileged to represent LOSFA at St. Landry Parish College Career Carousel that was held in St. Landry Parish. 264 people were in attendance at an event of which we had a direct engagement of 32 students, parents, and professionals. That middle photo captured our most recent invitation received from a local hospital where we are partnering with them in presenting student network information to their nursing clinical students as they go through the hospital orientations. We are seeking to replicate this model at other hospitals so that we can again connect with as many nursing students as possible. The last slide shows our student engagement division's efforts in supporting our LFOS family team there in their work with FAFSA nights throughout the various school districts in the state of Louisiana. Dr. Cobb will be giving you more details on that particular event that was held district-wide in East Baton Rouge Parish. Next slide, I think will be my final. Rhonda, as we look ahead, we have some upcoming events that we are excited just to announce again. The flyer to the left, at the time of submitting these slides, we were preparing for an orientation to be held on NSU's campus in a hybrid mode, which was our first time attempting that level of engagement. And I must say, as of last night, that event was held and we had a phenomenal, amazing turnout of 40 individuals present, a good mix of students, virtually and in present, and also with faculty from the NSU community. So we're looking to, again, to grow those groups, particularly this is with the accounting and finance sector. Two other institutions that we're looking to replicate the efforts with include LSU's College of Business and Loyola, their School of Nursing. So we'll be excited to report that outcome of those partnerships in the future with you. That's all I have for this month. Thank you so much for the time.
I have just a quick question, something that you mentioned, you said a high something mode, your first time?
Hybrid. So hybrid.
Hybrid. Okay, I did.
Yes,
I know what hybrid means. I thought this was a new
Yes.
technology term that I was way behind on. Thank you. Okay, LOSFA Field Outreach Services, Dr. Cobb.
Yes, good morning. So my name is Tarika Cobb, and I'm the director of LOSFA Field Outreach Services and the project director of Louisiana Gear Up. And to provide an overview to our guests of the services provided by LOSFA Field Outreach Services, I would like to let you know that we promote, prepare for, and provide college access in 5 categories. So that's professional development to district and school staff, students and families, and other community members. We also do comprehensive mentoring. We do TOPS, FAFSA, financial literacy presentations and workshops. We do college and career advising, and we provide college and career support services. We also partner with 4 post-secondary institutions to provide support services in these categories, including experiential learning. These institutions are Northwestern State University, Grambling State University, Southeastern Louisiana University, and Louisiana Tech University. Louisiana Gear Up, the students in that program are actually 12,000 students, which includes 6th through 12th graders. And also we provide services to first-year college students who are Gear Up students. And for our state services, we actually target over 23,000 students in that program. Next slide, Rhonda. Okay, so this leads us to our first part of our program update, which we call Innovative Outreach. So the number indicated on this graphic demonstrates the power of various modes of interactions or communication. We were able to reach this many students and parents because we do so in so many unique ways in coordination with our communications division. So yes, this count is definitely duplicated, meaning our students, parents, and educators were engaged multiple times in multiple ways. So this project stemmed from our work this summer in review of some of the unique ways our schools got it done with program implementation last year. And you all know that COVID has really changed our thoughts about how we engage our students and families. And so we wanted to make sure that our schools could actually, glean from their peers in terms of how they were able to get it done. So from drive-through events to provide financial aid information to grandparents to an all hands on deck approach with layers of school staff pitching in, we developed a booklet, and this is the cover of that booklet. So we wanted to, number one, celebrate our school successes, and number two, share with the broader school community and district community ideas and strategies on how to make it happen from their peers. And these are some of the outreach efforts that were actually done and some of the impact that was actually done through these efforts. Next slide, Rhonda. So as mentioned earlier, we provide professional development, or PD, for college access programming. And this slide highlights the Gear Up PD that we hosted with our national partner, NCEP, which stands for the National Council for Community and Education Partnerships. This PD was the first of a 4-part series, a national movement in a local setting. Schools that were highlighted in the Innovative Outreach booklet were asked to share with their peers. And these are schools that were represented who actually shared with their peers during this PD. So from 100% FAFSA completion with no errors, to engage in most of their middle and high school cohort in one or more activity. These schools were absolutely dynamic in reaching their peers in this. We learned so much from so many of them, and especially about how to engage community partners. We were so fortunate to have our schools share that. Next slide, Rhonda. So as Ms. Malvo spoke on in her previous presentation, this slide is about our Fafsa outreach. As you know, Louisiana ranked #1 last year in outreach, and we're so proud of the East Baton Rouge Parish School System, which is the largest school system that we contract with to provide college and career readiness services. We work with the school district to actually host a district-wide FAFSA completion event, which was held on October 6th. And it was well planned and executed with the leadership from the district personnel and the leadership of Darius Spurlock, who I might add is also a Gear Up student who's working with our program. He and Timothy Thomas, or Gear Up won the first grant we had in the state of Louisiana. A graduate from that program who has her master's degree, and also Darius Spurlock is also a product of Gear Up #2, our second grant, and we're now in Gear Up 3. So hopefully we can keep that tradition going here by actually hiring Gear Up students. So that was very awesome to hear that Vela has done the same thing with their approach. So with that being said, Darius's input as well as Ebony's input as our regional coordinators for the East Baton Rouge Parish School System, along with so many of our other staff members who supported this district-wide event, made it a success. And so what happened? EB, or East Baton Rouge Parish, was ranked #1 in FAFSA completion in October. And that was in large part because of this event, because of getting the parents and the students out for this event. Also listed on here were other districts that were ranked in the top 15 districts in our state for FAFSA completion. Now, while we're not where we're going to be at the end of FAFSA season, we are definitely, as a state, off to a good start, and we'll keep our efforts front and center. That's all I have. Thank you.
We thank you. Questions, comments, anyone? All right, moving on. Ms. Paul, scholarship and grant updates.
Deborah, I think you're on mute.
Thank you, Bret. Good morning. I am Deborah Paul, Director of the Scholarship and Grant Division. I will be highlighting 4 particular programs on this morning's presentation, but we actually have 10 programs that are not related to TOPS that we administer in the Scholarship and Grant Division. They are the Chafee Education and Training Voucher, which specializes in assistance for students who have aged out of the foster care system. We also have the TOPS Tech Early Start Program, which is for high school students, a dual enrollment program for 11th and 12th graders who want to pursue a technical degree once they graduate from high school. We also have the Strategists to Empower People, which is a grant through the Department of Children and Family Services to help adults who are on the public assistance programs to become citizens with marketable skills that they can come off the public service roles. We also have the Rockefeller State Wildlife Scholarship, which is for students who are majoring in areas related to wildlife, fisheries, and marine sciences. And our newest program is the Completers Grant, which is to incentivize students in healthcare and other fields and have 30 hours or less to complete their associate or bachelor's degree. And a new program coming on in January is the MJ Foster Promise Program, another program focusing on adults who will get job skills and training in 5 high-income sector areas across the state. Next slide, please. Okay, the Bessie Tuition for Teachers is a program through the Department of Education where teachers are allowed to take courses in STEM-related areas, which will enhance their teaching careers at our colleges across the state. And so we've only had 2 recipients this fall, but we can fund up to 7 students per semester with the best tuition program for teachers. Our GO grant, you had a slide in your handout, but we do have a more recent update regarding the GO grant. To date, we have billed for $18.1 million as opposed to the amount $14 million that's shown on the screen. And we have another $940,000, which will be processed. We process GO grants on Thursday nights. So we'll be very close to the halfway mark once we add this $940,000 to the existing $18.1 million that has already been billed. And we are currently encouraging our colleges to look for eligible students because it's a little bit different this year. Our allocation increased from 28 million to 40 million. So that expands the population of students who will be eligible to receive the GO grant through this 21-22 academic year. Next slide, please. Our John R. Justice program. It is a program where prosecutors and public defenders who work in the public sector are awarded grants to help pay back their existing student loans. So with our public defenders, we had 6 applications. We can make 5 awards. We still have 1 award that has not been given out yet. We're waiting on documentation for public defenders. On the prosecutor side, we had 15 applicants against 5 sectors, and we've made 8 awards. So we have 2 awards remaining on the prosecutor side. So it's a total of 3 of the 15 that have not been awarded yet, but those are slated to be completed prior to the end of this calendar year. Our Go Youth Challenge program is for students who have been part of the National Guard Youth Challenge program, which assists students, male and female, who are 15 through 18 years of age once they graduate from the Youth Challenge program or return back to their high schools because they can do credit course recovery through the Youth Challenge program. We provide them with tuition at our Louisiana public colleges and universities. Students who are in the Youth Challenge program, once they graduate and go to post-secondary school, they can receive tuition assistance as long as they're majoring in an area that leads to a 3, 4, or 5-star job. And those job designations are determined by our Louisiana Workforce Commission. Are there any questions about the programs?
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Paul? Okay, not, we'll move on to the TOPS update. Mr. Hutt.
Thank you.
Hey, I can be the first to wish everybody a good afternoon. It's I'm Bret Hutt, Director of Finance for LOSFA again. And for TOPS, we've spent about $6 million less this year than last year at this time. It's due mostly to 3 schools. Southern Grambling still haven't sent in their initial fall invoices yet, and Southeastern's fall invoices are about 12% less than they were last year. They have communicated to us that they're working to get caught up on their billing. They've had some staff turnover. They've had some administrative issues due to the hurricane. So we expect them to be about where they were last year. And the most important part of the TOPS update is that we have plenty of money to fund TOPS this year. There'll be no need to go back to the legislature for additional funding. And in fact, at some point, we will offer money back to the state. We're just not, we need the rest of the fall billing to come in before we can really give a full update. If you remember that at this point last year, I was already telling everybody we're going to be about $1.5 million short, and we were $1.6 million short. I am nowhere near comfortable enough to make that call quite yet. But I am comfortable enough to tell you that we have plenty of money for TOPS this year.
Good news.
Yep.
Questions for Mr. Hutt? All right. And now we come to, I think that's, if I've missed anything, please let me know. Now we come to new business. We have the adoption of the meeting dates, and then I think we also have our agenda item that we added. Okay, so these are the new meeting dates proposed. And may I have a motion to approve, please?
Amy Marix, motion to approve.
Thank you, Amy. A second, please.
Barry Bailey, second.
Thank you, Barry. It's been moved and seconded to approve these meeting dates through June 2022. All those in favor say aye.
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 Good job. Opposed, the same? Okay, next, and I think that the last action item is this rulemaking to add dual enrollment African-American history. Robin, do you need to say something about that, or can we just approve it?
I'll say something just real quick. For those of you who don't know, I'm Robin Lively. I'm LOSFA senior attorney. I do everything from the rulemaking to the contracts, along with my staff. But this rulemaking is standard requirement under the law when Bessie adds a course as a core equivalent for TOPS, or they want to implement a 5.0 grading scale for TOPS. Bessie take that, well, actually the Department of Education will bring that to the Bessie board for approval. In consultation with the Board of Regents. Yesterday, we received notification that they were going to add this dual enrollment course. So in order for us to be able to get that rulemaking done and sent over to the register for publication as quickly as possible, we wanted to go ahead and bring this to you today rather than waiting until December.
Okay, I think you've all had time to see that. Does anybody have any questions? If not,
Excuse me, I saw your trip, girl. Hi. You had fun, huh? Good for you. Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve this agenda item, please? Motion to approve.
This is Christy. I make the motion.
Thank you, Christy. A second, please.
This is Barry, a second.
Thank you, Barry. So it's been moved and seconded to approve this rulemaking as presented by Robin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Good job. Opposed, the same. All right, and that concludes what was on the agenda. We have public comments. And I don't know if Regent is still on here or not.
We don't have any more, but we do have 72 views, so there was some interest in it.
That's great. And no public comments? Any further questions?
I don't see any right now.
All right, thank you. And if that's the case, then we need a motion to adjourn. Last chance to get your name in the minutes here.
Amy Marix, motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Amy. I think we need a second too. All right. Second? All right, maybe not. Do we need a second?
We need a second.
We need a second.
This is Barry, a second.
Boy, you and Hutt, kudos to Barry and Amy, please. Thank you. All right. So with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for your time today. It was certainly very informational and packed. Thank you.
And just FYI, our next meeting is Thursday.